Welcome to Equilibrium Paranormal. News, views and reviews on everything para from around the world. Find us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube and Instagram. Equilibrium Paranormal. Stay spooky.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to Equilibrium Paranormal or Equilibrium Collective. I'm back. I'm back. I was panicking then. I'm trying to get it out and it wouldn't go. I don't know. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to Equilibrium Collective. We wouldn't be a Equilibrium Collective live unless we have any. We didn't have any gadgets and gremlins going on. So, in true Equilibrium Collective fashion, why not right at the very beginning? We'll get it out of the way. That kind of party. So, I'm Kerry Ann. For those who haven't seen us before, this is my co-host Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
We are Equilibrium Collective. We're one of there's 6 of us all together. So a little bit about our group. If you haven't seen us before, there's 6 of us all together. 4 of us are hosts on the YouTube channel. So we have 2 that work behind the scene. One in particular, Jess, who is in the chat room. She is our TikTok lady. She's the one that does all the specials on TikTok about haunted dolls. We're currently on the haunted doll season on YouTube. But if you follow us on TikTok, we're in our 2nd season, and that is Cryptoid. So have a check on TikTok. It's eq.co.uk.
That's the one.
Yeah, good. So yes, this evening me and Sarah are talking witches again. If you've been watching our show, our fortnightly show, we have been talking about Hans Wholesale. We have then followed that path then into world of witchery when we spoke about Sybil Leek. And this week we're going to be talking about the Ipswich witches. Now, we briefly spoke about them in our interview with David Schreider. If you haven't seen that, then make sure you go check it out. This was when we was talking about Hans Holster. We was following that for a little while, which was fantastic. And we touched upon it then. We are in the UK, if you haven't noticed from our accent. So we hadn't heard about the Ipswich witches, which was quite unusual for us, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, because we'd heard of, obviously, like the Pendle witches and Salem witches and all of that stuff, but we'd not come across the Suffolk witch trials. So this has been quite interesting.
It definitely has. And we have been focusing quite a lot about the women behind the witches. This is something that we are feeling quite strongly about. And we want to know the stories behind the ladies and behind the crimes, the alleged crimes, shall we say. And some of these crimes that are meant to have been, for child witchcraft, is diabolical. We'd all be trialed at this point for even us being able to choose.
I would have been burnt years ago.
I mean, we're talking without the company of men physically in our beings. So what's going on? The world we live in. So yeah, this is where we're at. So we, of course, in the UK, we have had the Witchfinder General, which, everyone knows about the Witchfinder General. Like we said, we were fully aware of the witch trials that had gone on in the UK and elsewhere in the continental and in America and stuff. We'd known about this, but we hadn't come across the Suffolk witch trials. So what is so fascinating about this case is the witch, or the lady that was executed quite horrifically for her alleged crimes, was one of the most horrific ones that has been documented in UK history. And also that we are looking at the reason why it's so important is because of all the social economic factors that were going on, how we had hysteria, all the environmental factors that influence this. So this is what makes this case study, this execution, murder, whatever you want to call it, what makes it so interesting and significant historically is what I want to get with. So I think the best place we can start with this story, because there is so much of it, and again, this is only a quick overview of it. We aren't able to go into complete detail. I wish we really could, but we are going to give as much information and facts that we were able to find. And if we don't feel like it's a fact, then we will let you know. And again, this is up to you for you to decide what and what not. So we're going to start at what it was like in Ipswich back in the 1600s, which is where Mary Lackland began. So her herself, she was a 70-year-old lady, and she was brought to trial. It's going on my speech. She was brought to trial with another lady. I think her name was Alice. And at this time, her trial was one of the ones there was the most amount of people trialed at the same time. All of them got founded that they weren't a witch, and the only two people that were trialed for witchcraft was Mary Lackland and Alice as well. And I'll have her last name shortly. So we need to kind of talk about Ipswich and what was going on at that time. And what kind of things did you find about it, Sarah, that you thought was quite interesting?
Well, the 1600s, it was a harsh period, wasn't it? There's lots of poverty, there's lots of oppression, it's the rise of the church. So there's all these things going on, and I feel like each thing sort of led to something worse. So
Yeah,
along with disease and famine and poverty in general, and the oppression of women, the oppression of children as well. Yeah, it was pretty harsh times.
it wasn't just that, but Ipswich itself was the centre of all shipping,
Yes.
and it was they controlled the coal trade as well. So it was brought from Newcastle down to London through Ipswich. So it was a massive trading city, place, village. I don't know. It was a really small, rural area at this point. It was considered a little village at this point. And a lot of the trade that come from Northern Europe kind of centers around this time. The problem you have with such a small village is that everyone knew everyone. Everyone knew the ins and outs. Everyone knew each other. Everyone knew what the wicked stepmother had got up to, or the crone or the wench, or whatever they used to refer to 20-year-olds at that time. I don't know. Better be married before you're 20, otherwise you're a wench. I don't know, right? So that's the kind of life we lived back then. But yeah, so they all knew about each other, and they were in each other's lives, and it was a very controlled place. It was very regimental. There was a natural rhythm that had been developed through this time. For example, they would have meat markets on certain days. So on a Friday, they'd have a meat market, but they'd always make sure that by Saturday morning it was all cleared up so that you didn't go into the Sabbath. They would hold lectures. These are religious lectures that would go on for about 3 hours at a time, and life would stop in that village while the people that lived in the area would go and watch these lectures. Now, I know that Mary Lackland, I'm going to call Mary from now on. I know it's a bit familiar, but I don't want to keep confusing her name. So Mary would go to these. So I don't feel, and she was a single woman at this time. She was widowed. She was 70. She really lived her life expectancy was yes. So she would attend these. She would go. Yes. So life would really be revolved around the Sabbath. It was really strict that nothing was to happen on the Sabbath, and that day was to be kept for the day of the Lord and the Lord's work. And that everything else around the life of Ipswich would be kind of governed by those. And again, everything would stop while they would have lectures in these 3-hour lectures. Everything in the town would completely stop while they took place. Keeping Sabbath sacred was paramount at this time. So this meant that things were shifted around. Now, just to get an idea of how important these lectures would be, they would run twice a week. Now, the town lecturer would earn something like £100 a year, which at that time was a small fortune. It was quite a significant amount of money. So that's how important those kind of roles were. Now, trying to figure out how many people lived in that area at that time is really hard, because they didn't really hold a census. They would kind of go by how many head of the households they were, and then they average it out by how many people would live in a typical family. So if it was like 2 children, a mum and a dad, then they would just times that by how many heads of the household that they were able to account for. So getting an idea of how many people lived in Ipswich at that time is really hard, but at the same time, there is estimates that it would be in the low thousands. So quite a lot going on living there. And again, this, they would have curfews as well. Like, everyone had to be home before dusk. So this was a really controlled environment, and a lot of it was governed by Christianity, God, and consequently fear of the dark unknown, the dark arts, should we say. So yeah, so the years building up to this Suffolk witch trial was very prickly. Everyone was on edge. Everyone was in fear. Everyone was worried that something bad was going to happen. Everyone was, we had this curfew. We were very controlled and governed, very cognitive rights and wrongs, and what was allowed and what was not allowed. So this really kind of created a difficult time. Now, around about the same time as this, they had the Civil War. So what did you find much about Civil War, Sarah?
I didn't. I got too involved with Matthew Hopkins.
Okay, we are gonna get to that guy soon. Don't worry. He's coming. We're coming for you. No, I'm joking. We're not. Anyway, I jest. So around about this time, you had a period of time, like a few years of there being a bit of upheaval. We had the Civil War was going on, so we had people that were in that area, and their ships would be used for taking those that have been recruited to go into the war. We had so if you look at that within itself, people were losing ships. There were ships going out and not coming back. There were people going out and not coming back. There was the fact that you had such a religious kind of air to everything. Like, what to deserve this? So there was a lot of this going on. What can I do to make this better? What have I done? What is the message God's trying to give me by, everything come personal. Everything come really personal. So this was what was going on. The king was trying to reign as well without parliament at this time, and there was this whole paranoia about Catholics, like hidden Catholics, trying to plot to take over. Pesky Catholics. Come on over here, take that. I'm joking. And then there was the unsuccessful war as well, where the ships were lost. And let's not forget, the Black Plague was also at this time. So this is what's happening all in one area, all at one time, over a really I say short space, but over a period of years, which probably felt like a long time. I mean, we've been in a pandemic. We've been in a pandemic now for about a year, 2 years,
something like
and
that.
even though it's been nearly 2 years, it still feels like yesterday it started. It still feels so very new because there's still stuff going on. So this is times that by 10. This is what's going on with them. So of course the natural attitude towards this is like, what did we do? What did we do to deserve this? What can we do to this is you they say, like, this is God's way to tell us that we're in the wrong, or there's something we need to change. So what is the problem? How can we repent? And this was not only on a national scale, this was on like a town council scale, this was on an individual scale. Why is this happening to me? So this is Ipswich at the time of I say poor Mary because I honestly think that what these women went through is literally the most, it's horrific, because people are people at this point, so I'm not going to allow myself to get upset, but I just feel like it's really, really sad, really, really sad. So did you find much more, Sarah, about the time that Mary lived in before I continue to talk non-stop?
So the Suffolk witch trials took place in the 17th century under Matthew Hopkins, who made up his own little job description of Witchfinder General.
Yes, he did. He named himself. Imagine just turning up one day at work and going, right, I'm director. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's like, how vain can you get? This guy really liked himself a lot.
He did. And it wasn't even an official position. They're low level. Because it wasn't just Matthew Hopkins, it was Stern as well. And like
it wasn't even like he had like an army of people in his department. It was just him and this other guy and maybe a couple of others.
I love the department. It's
like
self-appointed.
Yeah, it was like he made this department of people, like at work, in the office, it's like, you've got that department, you've got this department. No, I want my own department.
I'm not even that was it. He didn't have no official appointing in the church or in law. He literally pitched up one day with his mate as well. And was like, right, so what we need to talk about to really understand the Witchfinder General is the law, the continental law and the UK law, right? So what we had in Ipswich, we had it that the bishop at the time wasn't really pushing through these cases in court. So a lot of people were going to court with these cases and they weren't being trialed. There was a change in bishop, and this change in bishop then changed these court cases coming through quite quickly. Now, the problem was that when you take out, like, I don't know, Sarah has sent her familiar to my house, and since then my milk's gone sour, right? When you take that out between sorry, my computer's yeah, am I there?
Yeah, you're there.
Right. When you take out the fact that it's between me and Sarah, and we take this to an outside court that's not in our community, that's not even our home, we're now going up against someone that is probably going to look at it from a logical perspective and just see two neighbours kind of. So what you were finding was a lot of people were having these cases, and they were basically getting off. They were found not guilty of witchcraft. So this is what was going on. But the continental law says that you must have a confession to be able to trial someone. At this time, this was in the 1700s, and you can use torture to get this confession. This is what they were saying. However, I know, right? And anyway. But in the UK, you don't have to have a confession, but you cannot use. Oh no, you do have to have a confession, but you cannot use torture. So what the Witchfinder General did, what Hopkins did after giving himself a name, what name to give yourself as well? Like, out of all the names you could have created, you was like, I know what I'm gonna be. I know, but at least he did exactly what he said in the tin. But what he did was he said he found a way of being able to tell whether someone was a witch or not. And one of these things was to search a body, that someone completely naked, and to find a teat, a marking, a lump, something where she would feed, or he would feed their familiar. So this was what he was saying. He was going around to, I don't know, Bishop, I don't know, Mr. Man, and going, look, I understand you have a witch problem, right? But me and my mate, we have, I know, right? I mean, how many people knew how many witches there was? For real. Like, anyway, we heard you have a witch problem. Don't worry. Me and my mate, we can sort this out. We've got a way. All we've got to do is find an extra teat. Yeah, I know it's weird, but it's where she suckles the devil, right? And they're going, oh, okay, yeah, sure, right. Let's bring in the women. Bring the women. Let's check them out. Let's look for this extra teat. And this is what they did. Literally, that is what they did. Just went, and they travelled 300 miles. I mean, who hurt you, hun? Who hurt you? 300 miles.
It's Crazy. Just to have a good old
What?
purge, seriously.
Well, right. So this is the thing. They had matrons that would go and check the women, so that they weren't on this like pervy crusade, like keeping up, like peeping toms on steroids. They weren't doing that. They were just like, right, we've got some women that are going to check them out. They're called matrons. I don't know whether they're officially matrons or whether they're just. I want to start.
That's a whole nother department.
Yeah, that's they've got a whole other department for the matrons, right? This is
It's my
HR.
colleague.
Yeah, I know. It's what is going on? So yeah, so that is what they did. So yeah, going back to your sorry, I cut in again. We digress. Witch finder general. Sorry.
So yeah, Hopkins was originally from Mistley in Essex. Heard of it?
Yes. No, I haven't.
Okay.
So he was.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where he was from, and he obviously had played some role in, well, massive role in all the witch hunting in the UK. So he travelled around a lot. He was, just not a very nice guy, really.
No. Who hurt you, hon? Who did
know,
it? Who did she leave you for?
Really. He just needed a hug.
Yeah. From a witch. Yeah.
So during 1645, I also found that there were at least 124 witch trials in Suffolk alone, most of which were impoverished women or widows or gobby women, independent women with an opinion.
It's us. Tag us. It's us.
It's us. We are the impoverished women with an opinion.
Well, so what I actually found was this council had this particular council had managed to find a bit of land. It was owned by the Black Friars. Anyway, it was handed down by person, organisation, whatever you want to refer to them as, and they would build on this land. It was really poor building. It was really low income, and by the time it had got to this particular town council, what they actually did was they actually took the women that were widowed and put them in this area. And they gave them spinning wheels just to keep them out of trouble with them. What is that? They actually got spinning wheels. Like, look, this is your land, ladies.
Women, honestly. They are my women.
Imagine causing that many problems that they've had to give you a spinning wheel just to get you out of the way.
Shut you up.
Yeah. But it was really poor housing, and it was like destitute basically. And this is where they were finding them.
Well.
Okay, yeah. So this is where they were finding their women, and this is where they were putting them. So yeah. So this is what happened. Get back to it. Go on. Yeah. You can have the talking stick.
So, August trials of 1645 were the largest, like, mass onslaught of supposed witches. What else was there? Obviously, most of them were women. There were a few men included in that, including was it a priest? It was a priest, wasn't it?
Yes, there was a priest involved as well.
The theory is that he posed a threat to some other guy, and that's what happened. And he was tortured to the point that he said, "Yeah, all right, mate, I'm a witch." And what? He was hung. And then, another thing we need to point out, in England, it was not the done thing to burn witches.
No, it was
this
not.
This is going to come up later.
Yes, it will.
This is a huge marker. So the burnings would happen in America and the rest of Europe, basically. But in England, it was the done thing to hang the witches. And then sometimes after they were hung, they would burn them just to make sure that they were dead or something. Just to make sure that they didn't come back from the dead and curse them. whatever.
Well, they would also swim them, which is basically putting
Yeah.
them in a water and filling their pockets full of stones. And the theory would be that the devil would renounce the holy water that was given to them, and because of that, they would float. But if they weren't and they were real, that wasn't witches, they would sink. And every time the woman would sink. The sad thing about this is, though, that some of the women would actually request for this to happen because they were so sick of the alienation. Bear in mind, it's the little villages. These people would be shunned completely from everyone they know, their family, friends, their love community, what they're used to. They would be shunned, and they would beg to be swum, or swimmed, and they would die. But that's kind of what they'd ask for, and they'd do it as well because that's what they were doing at them times. Now they weren't able to use torture, so what they would do is they would use techniques which is used in in lots of in the war and stuff like that. They would even make them stand on a stool, which would normally be very, very unsteady, and they'd make them stand there until they were exhausted and start to hallucinate. It is. The other thing they would do is they would put them in stress positions, and they would make them stay in that position until again they would start to hallucinate. And the theory was that the reason why they were doing that was they were going to leave them for a couple of days, whatevs. Because the familiar would want to come and feed, and at that point, because they needed evidence. They couldn't. They still needed solid evidence to be able to trial them for witches, which is a misconception, really. When we talk about witch trials, it made it sound like it was so easy for people to do. There was a lot of alleged accusations, and a lot of people were proven not to be witches. However, there is a lot of women that was. This is how they would do it. They would hallucinate to the point of just tell them anything just to get them out of that situation. That's basically how they would get their women to confess. Now, we'll talk a little bit about Mary Lackland. Now, there is a pamphlet that was released, and I've written it down somewhere, but I can't remember what it was. But in this pamphlet, they said that she actually confessed to the crimes that she was trialed for. However, when you look at the session, the details from the session itself, it actually says that she pleaded not guilty and was found guilty. So I would like to lean more to the court session details than I would the pamphlet. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Mary now, considering that is what the topic is mostly about and why she's so significant. So I'll let Sarah take over.
So, Mary Lackland, the 70-year-old widow who, she was very known in the community because she used to hold sort of like Bible studies groups. So she'd have some of the women from the village come round and they would read from the Bible. She would read the Bible to them and they would worship and, all that good stuff. And it was unusual for a woman at that time to be able to read anyway. So that was quite significant that she could actually have these meetings and conduct these meetings. So she faced a myriad of accusations and charges, including the murder of her husband,
John
and that's right, and nourishing evil spirits.
Yep. She was also accused of causing upset to William Lawrence and his son, and an eventual death as well after them asking for a payment. Yeah.
Going back to independent, opinionated women, Mary confronted the town lecturer in public. No fucks given. Totally.
She just swore.
I did. It's got to be said. Okay, this is a woman who's got an opinion, and she's going to voice that opinion.
Yes.
And she was querying his authority to oppress the poor and his obvious injustices brought upon the townsfolk, such as failing to support widows and orphans, only supplying bad food and inadequate clothing, and profiting from their free labour and stealing the spirit of children. And she said this in front of everyone. Now,
I
this
reckon the last one is a bit of, huh?
Go
on, carry on.
I forgot where I was now. Yeah, so stealing the spirit of children, so making children miserable and like not literally stealing the spirit of children, but
okay,
you know, stopping them from having fun and doing kid stuff. And she warned him that he will succumb to divine punishment. Now, a lecturer of the Bible is not going to take too kindly to that. So he accused her of speaking with the tongue of spirit, i.e. being possessed or channeling the voice of spirit, because no woman would ever do this at this point. And in the same week, the lecturer's son fell very ill and sadly died, which he blamed on her.
Well, that's not the only death that she was blamed for as well. She was also blamed for, the illness, sorry. Her granddaughter had a person that she was interested in. He spurned her, and shortly after that, he was sailing the ship wrecked, and he became really unwell. It says that he developed a wasting illness. And also the last, I don't know if it's the last one, but the last one I found was that the other thing that she was accused for was for making the pact with the devil. Apparently, he touched her hand with his hoof and she signed her name in blood in the pact that she made with him.
Oh, I didn't find that one.
Yeah, well, fun fact. Yeah, so she was also accused of that. But again, this is a crime of darkness and magic, and it's hard to prove. So a lot of people did get off. And this particular trial with Mary wasn't just her. It was with Alice. I found her last name. Every time I say Alice, I always have that song in my head. I'm not going to say it because everybody swore. Alice Desham. Desham? Yeah. And if you know the song, then, you know, you're welcome, because you've got to probably be singing that all night in your head now. So, yeah, sorry about that. So they were put into a poor part, and but so when we still talk about that time, the only other woman now, right? So Mary was burnt at the stake. So what was different from her to the other witches was she was actually found guilty of petty treason because she had been accused of killing her husband 20 odd years earlier. This is like 20 odd years later. They accused her. Now, why they thought that she'd killed him, I don't know. I don't know whether there's speculation. Yeah, so
on that.
But I'll tell you a little bit about this petty treason stuff. It was actually, believe it or not, was brought in by King Henry VIII. And it was, if you was to ever murder your husband, I mean, who would want to murder King Henry VIII? I have no idea. What wife would want to kill him? Like, come on.
Such an amazing man.
I mean, he was, you know, with or without syphilis. Did he have syphilis? Yeah. So, so he brought this in, and he said that if he was to ever find guilty of murdering your husband, you would one of two things: be burnt at a stake, which is what happened to Mary Lackland, or you would be boiled in a pot of oil. Now, the boiled in the pot of oil was a bit of a pain in the back, apparently, because they couldn't get a big enough pot and they would need a lot of oil, so they were burning at the stake. And it was actually known to be burnt to ashes, is what they did. This is what happened to Mary. Now, the only other time that this has been known to happen in Ipswich is in the 1780s in the Bettingfield case, where again a woman was accused of murdering her husband and found guilty. But what I will say is again, what makes Mary's case so unique is that she was the last woman trialed for witchcraft in Ipswich as well. So we'll get onto why they think that happened, because it does seem like they were trying to set up for more of these things to go ahead, but it did stop. So a reason why a lot of these cases there was an influx of these cases all of a sudden was in 1645. The power of the bishop moved, and he didn't really push for any cases to come forward. So there was a massive backlog on all these witch cases, and people not getting their court cases come up.
And that's the main point. He wanted to start pushing these trials through. He wanted to really, like put the fear into everyone, because then they will conform to his bidding. And
and you got to remember as well that when I was talking about the socio-economic factors and the outside influences of that community, if you look at that melting pot, you have a small located area that is considered rural. It has a lot of foot flow coming in and out, and it relies on it heavily to be able to contain, to carry on, prosper. They are hit with this war, which means that this trade is now ceased. Ships that they use for trades are lost at war. Men aren't coming back. We have the Black Plague. We also have this sense of only bad things happen to us when there's a message meant to be given to us by God, and that the reaction to this is to be able to pray in private, or repent, or look inwards at what you've done, take it personally. What did I do to deserve this? And so all this is going on. Then you have the aspect that the king is now going into power and doesn't want no support from the parliament. You have this constant fear that the pesky Catholics are going to come and take over the world. This is something they were worried about as well at the time. And then you've got these misfortunate things that have no logic, and it must be witchcraft. What else could it be? The devil is in that. The devil's among us. That is all it can be. And then you have these women that don't conform or don't fit that societal norm of being married with children, living a very healthy, non-speaking, non-opinion, non-reading, non-writing life that we all aspire to. Let's be real. Dream big. So we have this going on, and that is what happened in Ipswich when good old self-appointed, self-named witch finder general turned up with his little mate and was like, you've got a problem. We can fix this. Bring out the 13th. So there's three theories that we've come across that could explain Mary's case. Now, let's firstly say she's a witch. She was a witch, and she did the things that they said she did. Hopefully. I'm joking.
No, hopefully. I don't know, there's probably more self-proclaimed witches this day and age than there was back then, to be fair.
Yeah. And of course, it's maybe she was, maybe she wasn't, but that is something that can't be proven. It's neither here nor there. It's not something
we need to remember as well, just to make point, the cunning woman, the healer, the
cunning man,
cunning man, even anybody that had the knowledge and skills to perform healing. That could be with herbs, that could be with whatever.
Yeah,
was essentially a witch.
Yeah,
all these good things that these people were doing, and they were getting punished for it.
Yeah,
and this is how all those skills and knowledge have been lost, and it's so sad.
It is. And the second theory that we come across is when Sarah said that she held Bible study and that she would talk and go through the Bible. There was a theory that she was a high priestess, and actually, in fact, this was a coven that she was belonging to. So this is the other theory. You know, and it's just, you know, women probably empowering one another, that are in the same situation, that can relate and support one another through what probably is a very difficult time. And the third reason is that she could just not have conformed to the societal norms of being that individual that helps other individuals. She could have just been worried about her own self, and at this time it takes a village to raise a child. You know, that kind of mentality. This is what you were working with back then. Everyone would help one another out. They would help each other out, and maybe she didn't. Maybe she didn't want to do that, and maybe that's something that, you know, you couldn't just push someone out of their home and of their village and without, you know, real worry. And maybe that's how they managed to do it. Maybe they just wanted to push her out because she wasn't being part of the team, you know, and that's another thing to look at. But either way, it's all speculation. It's all speculation. But yeah, so I mean, there's obviously more. You know, there was so one of the things that I did find was really interesting. So I know that in this day and age, witches bottles are quite a popular thing witches will have. I'm not going to give away trade secrets. I'm joking. Witches bottles are something that people use to, or witches use as a form of protection. They put it within their walls or put it within their boundaries, and you know, there's lots of things that go in there. And I mean, did you watch that one with the guy on Bargain Hunt or wherever it was, and he thought he had this bottle of rum or whiskey, vintage bottle of rum and whiskey, and he opened it up and took a sip, and it was urine in there, and there was weed. And it turned out it was a witch's bottle. He'd found a witch's bottle and there was urine in it, and he took a sip out of it as well. Oh, good times. He took a sip out of it. Yeah, he took a sip out of it. That's how they found it was urine. Yeah,
that later.
I know. Especially you found that. But at the time it was more of a stone mug, like a stone jug they'd use, and there would be like an engraved face on it that was quite like bearded and, you know, menacing, and they would put in things like urine and blood, and they would then put in sharp objects like knives, forks, nails. Yeah, this is what they would put in back then. And what they would do, and this wasn't witches that did this, by the way, this is what people would do when they couldn't take the witch to court. They would take this jug, they would stick it by the fire, and let it boil. And apparently it was meant to, if someone felt like they were bewitched, sorry, I've missed a massive chunk. If someone felt like they were bewitched, they could do this, and they weren't too sure who it was. What would happen would be is that this process would make them feel so uncomfortable, it would hurt the witch, but the witch would then come to them, and what they would do then is they would make a deal with them. Like, you know, if I did give you this, will you leave me alone? Or the other thing was, if they took a sample of her blood, apparently if they, even the smallest amount of blood, they could break the curse, and then that would be the end of that. So this is if they could take them to court. But I found it quite fascinating because obviously witches use these now as a form of protection. It shows how things change over the years.
And I think it's quite ironic how they are like drawing the witch to them by using
witchcraft. Yes. Right. So right. So we need to talk about the Puritans. The Puritans of this time, you know, the misconception about Puritans, that they were the ones that were kind of like behind this whole kind of thing. But when you go back and you look at the research, look at the history, they weren't. In fact, they said the only power that could ever come about is that of God. And that these people that were looking for witches were in fact witches themselves, because they were acknowledging the existence of witches, like the witch's bottle, and burning people, and, like, you know, trying to get the evil out of them by doing what are they doing by doing that? That's their own form of sorcery, really. You know, so that's what the Puritans were saying. Like, we don't believe in witches, and by doing this yourself, you are, you know, yourself a witch. So yeah, so there's this big thing about the Puritans as well when it comes to what happened. So yeah, that's kind of what happened. Yeah, good times. So when we look at Hopkins, as we said, he named himself. He did whatever he wanted to do. He had no position really in the church, and he would find these texts, and that their matrons would do that for him, and the familiar will come. Now, when we come, why did it stop? Why did this stop? Why did they stop trialing witches? Now we know the Witchcraft Act actually become non-existent in the 50s, which is within our lifetime. And I know I've joked about some of the things in terms of her being a witch and doing the things that they said she did. Of course, I don't wish harm on anyone, and I hope to God. It makes me sad that these things happen irrespective of the parts that people played, so I stand by that. But why did they stop? Well, of course we want them to stop, but why? And even after the death of Mary, what they actually did was they announced that any trials that were to be come forward the cost of it would be shared between those that lived within the village. So what they essentially were doing was trying to encourage more of these cases, but no more was trialed after Mary. No more witchcraft, and after her there was the one death, which wasn't even witchcraft. They didn't trial her for witchcraft. They trialed her for petty treason, which is the good old King Henry law. Which again, I'm still baffled why he would want that. So that was the story of Mary Lackland. Now there is a book called The Suffolk Witch Trials, Mary Lackland, and it's written by David L. Jones. I will say I've listened to quite a lot of podcasts by David. I've read quite a few reviews of his book. If you're particularly interested in this story yourself, then I would really recommend you going to read the book, because he's very informative and he gives a very good overview. He gives a very insightful look at what Ipswich was like at that time, what happened during the Suffolk witch trials, and who Mary was and why she's so significant in terms of historical value. I think no matter how many times we talk about these witches, whether it's in a positive or negative aspect, whether it's because of their trials or because of their accomplishments, Sybil Leek, Mary Lackland, we've spoken personally and privately about Salem witch trials and Pendle witches, and it's just, I think it's so hard to really get to the bottom of it. And I think personally, emotionally, I think we speak about it now so familiar, like so regularly, like the power of what actually happened, the magnitude of sadness, and the horrific torture of these women, people, and children, men and women, children are lost in these conversations. I feel. I don't know if Sarah can add any more to that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these were human beings. Like, it could be like your nan, for example, going through these things. And when you, as you talk about the history of things, it's really easy to become emotionally detached from the humanity of it. And I think it is really important to remember that these were people with families, with feelings, and they died horrific deaths with accusations and lies told about them. I mean, how would that affect you emotionally and mentally?
Even that, after they died, they would still be shunned.
Exactly.
The most horrific. Yeah, they even, like, their burial was horrific, and to be dug up and then have a stake get drawn through your heart because someone's said that they can see your ghost, and like, I can't. And like I said, the more we talk about it, the more detached, like Sarah said, we get about it emotionally. And I think that anyone that's watching this and that is interested in witches in history, or the trials and tribulations that happen, the prosecution, that perjury, everything that goes on with witches back then, and witches now, to be fair. Really, I advise you to look at the people behind the stories rather than the acts and the trial that happens, because all that identity is taken away. So yeah, so that's my advice. We all have fun and joke, but we have a serious side too, guys. And again, I also acknowledge that no one deserves to, go through any kind of torment or pain. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Sorry for the sad note, but I feel like it's something that it's important to share as we start to come away from the individual witches that are part of these trials. We are going to be looking in the future. We're going in our future shows about trials themselves. I think we're going to be talking about Pendle and Salem soon. So as we come away from the witches, we're going to be, acknowledging that as well. So we have, thank you for everyone that's watched, and thank you for those that got involved. We're not going anywhere yet. We do have Laura in the green room. We're going to bring Laura in. Don't go anywhere, Jess. We have Laura our comedy.
I'm the comedy section now. I'll cheer you all up.
Yeah, so we brought Laura in because we are celebrating. We are celebrating that we have over 700 subscribers. I cannot believe it. How did this happen?
Amazing. I can't believe it. Like
Huge channels on YouTube is what happened.
Yes.
No, Nuke 5 picked it up. I can't remember the other one, and then you had Chill, and Chills have just picked it up as well.
And it was King Frostmare.
That's it, King Frostmare.
And they're the only ones that we know of. We don't know where else the clip has gone, because these are things our viewers have reached out to us and said, we've seen you on this, have a look, and that's the only way we've been able to find out. And yeah, I'm trying to keep the expressions on my face as minimal as possible, because I do not, that is something else, that thumbnail, but
it haunts her.
Yes, it does. But yeah, so new top 5, King's Frostmare and Chills, which is fantastic. So thank you guys so much for featuring us and for supporting us and for helping us to get our story out there a bit more. And yeah, we want to get to 800. We would love to get to 800 subscribers. We'd love to do it tonight. We would love to do it by tonight. We've only got a couple of hours, but
you imagine
if you guys can help us,
all these ladies are rocking the red lips tonight.
Yeah. We've got that red lip thing you like, guys, girls, and all that in between.
And the red.
Yeah, so
with attitude, witches.
That's it. Yes, we are that. We are 100% that witch. So yeah, if you can help us to get to 800, that'd be fantastic. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, invite your friends. But yeah, so Laura, tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up next week.
Next week we are doing, keeping with the cryptids, the cryptozoology. We're doing the Beast of Bodmin Moor. We are going to do one more, but I'm trying to find something else, because we just want to base our crypto in the UK, because so much is done around the USA and everywhere else. So we want to try and stay within the UK with this one, because there is so much. But it's just finding the right one that's going to go with it, because obviously the Beast of Bodmin Moor, it's like a giant black cat that gets seen. Looks a bit like a panther, is it, or a jaguar?
Yeah, panther.
Yeah.
So yeah,
don't give too much
gonna have fun researching that with Terry, which I'm looking forward to doing next week.
And if you have come from Nuke Top 5 or from Chills or from Frostmare, King Frostmare, Terry is our voiceover lady. She is the one that done voiceover for our feature, which is fantastic. Yeah, did you see that? She's so English, and the way she says equilibrium as well. I was like, oh, say it again.
I know.
That's
so big to me, Terry.
Say it again.
Terry. So, yeah.
Walking like that. Ooh.
I know. What do you like? So yeah, so she does her voiceover, which is fantastic. So yeah, so if you haven't seen any of our other videos, go and check them out with Terry, with Laura Jane, myself, Kerry Ann and Sarah. Is there anything you want to add?
Jess,
Oh, and Jess on TikTok.
Doing her stuff on TikTok.
Mm.
What she just do? The Jersey Devil. Oh, yeah, it says it down there.
Yeah,
Yes,
Jersey
she's the
Devil.
Jersey Devil yesterday, so you got to check that one out. Amazing. I love Jess's TikToks. They're so good.
We will also be working on a few other videos or evidence, as it were. So,
Can't wait.
Yeah,
Keep
we
an eye
have
out for that one.
Yeah, we've got a few going on. So yeah, so if you want to see, TikToks are uploaded onto our YouTube channel on a Sunday. We are currently on season 1, Haunted Doll season. But if you want to get the up to date, get the sneaky peek, the first look, we are in season 2 on TikTok. So please find Jess over there, eq.co.uk, and that is our TikTok. So Laura, have you got anything you want to add with what we've spoken about this evening? Final thoughts, Jerry Springer?
Jerry. No, do you know what I'm thinking about it? Go on, what?
I said, just don't get your jerry beads, all right?
Do you know what? I was like listening to what you go like what you was talking about. Do you know, it makes me like Jess said, really sad thinking about, because you just couldn't imagine them days, the fear that they must have had, just the pain. I mean, it's just such scary times back then, and luckily we don't have that kind of is it persecution? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Like they did back then. I mean, to think like they lived in fear. It is such a sad, really sad story.
And I think, although it's an abnormal thing to happen, what makes me so sad is that we talk about it so normally because it's back then.
Yeah.
You know, where's the outrage? Like,
yeah.
You know, where's the outrage?
Justice? Yeah, where's the justice?
So, but yeah. But thank you so much for joining us, Laura, this evening. Thank you, and make sure you tune in next Thursday. I was quickly cutting it off before we go back into a sad thing, and I'm gonna have to watch Family Guy to cheer myself up now. So, but yes,
Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy is the best to cheer you up. I love Ren and Stimpy.
And on that note, we're gonna say
amazing.
Nah.
And also welcome to any new viewers that are here today, wherever you come from, new top 5 Jills of that. Just want to say welcome and thank you for supporting us all. So much appreciated. Like really, we do all appreciate it.
We do. Thank you so much. So we're gonna say goodnight. Sarah's going to end the broadcast because whenever I do, we just stand there, sitting there, smiling at the screen for an hour because I can't get to it quick enough. Sarah's going to end the broadcast. So we're going to say goodnight, and Laura will see you next week at 8:30 or 8 p.m.
8:30. Me and Terry will see you all here next Thursday at 8:30 for our cryptozoology segment.
See you later.
Bye.